We're on December 10th, 2022. We are back. Co-host here, retired first sergeant in the Army, Brian Norris. We decided to do another video today. We're going to take a little break before for Christmas. We both had kind of like different we're going different directions. It was going to be a couple of weeks that we don't see each other, so we were like, "Hey, but you know what? We
Sparked
definitely
a lot of
sparked
a lot of stuff for the
some
last one.
controversy with the last couple of videos. I'm not laughing because our subjects are not funny at all. It's just interesting how people are starting to respond. They are thinking for themselves and questioning, and I think that's great. Like we talked about third world nation. Like I read some comments in the section. In the section down below of this video, I read some posts on Twitter. I am at the New America 77, by the way, on Twitter. And Brian's got a Spotify channel,
Homefront Radio.
Right?
You can find it anywhere podcasts are available, and it's Homefront Radio. It's myself, my co-host Jared Harris.
Got it. And I'll put all those little links down below.
A little longer than a tooth on those.
Yeah,
Our
I
average
believe
episode
it.
is about 2 hours. We get into some detail and have a little bit of fun, but yeah, it's quite long.
Yeah, and when I first started talking to Brian, when we started doing these videos, I can just tell right away, when you ask him a question, he's so intense that when it starts going, and all the comments that he makes, to me, they make so much sense, and he speaks with passion. There is nothing fake about this guy right here. Like you can just tell, you can feel it, right? His presence is, you can just sense it. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think some of you might get it because his content, the way he presents facts, I find very fascinating, and that's why I like to have him on the show.
Well, I don't understand how people can't be passionate about their nation and their country and
Yeah,
the direction that it's going.
I feel the same. Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty upset that for the first generation, we are being left a nation that was not better than what it was before we had it. And we're going to leave our kids potentially an even worse off nation than what we found it. And it's already degraded state. That's shameful.
Yep.
We have a stewardship and a responsibility as men, especially, because it's men. It's the men of this country's fault. It's our fault that we're not using our strength and the talents that God has given us to have ownership and stewardship, pride in place to protect the environment in which our children and what they're going to inherit, the nation that they're going to inherit.
Yeah, I sent you a link from Zero Hedge. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it. Most of this stuff we knew, we talked about it. It was about how Constitution basically is.
I did not get to read that one yet, but it's on my list.
And it was a lot of points there that I might even pull my phone out before the end of this video to kind of read a couple of those, because it is just kind of like, it is so to the point. It is so sad to see how we basically have, we are on morphine drip right now. When
you
it
have a
comes to,
sitting president of the United States willfully ignoring the Constitution. The Supreme Court issued a ruling against some of his decisions, and they willfully disobey them and go forward. I'm speaking, of course, in referencing the student loan repayment plan, which they said, the House is supposed to control the purse, and also with the border control and other assets. And now we have a president who just yesterday traded a arms dealer that was known as being the dealer of death around the world for a lesbian African-American basketball player. So anyone out there that was in support of that trade right there, you can no longer say anything about gun laws.
I was just going to say that how ironic is that? Yeah, we're going to go push all
this. If you supported
this.
that trade, and you put back in the operational environment around the world the single most threatening human being when it comes to underground arms and black market arms the world has ever known.
Did you by any chance see this guy? Like, did you see what he looks like?
Yeah.
Like, he looks the part.
He's a killer.
Like, he just looks like, I can just tell. Like, I have a lot of experience. I played a lot of poker in my life, live poker. And I can just kind of like, I feel like I have an x-ray. But this was to read people. Mm-hmm. This was no x-ray needed. No poker experience. You can be 15 years old, 55 years old.
If you walk
yeah.
in a bar looking to start a fight, you're going to pass right by that individual and go to the next one in line.
Because you're done.
Yeah.
Like he's been there, done that. Like you
Exactly.
can just tell. Yeah, that's what's going on. So I will I may not read all these examples that were listed in this very, very disturbing article that are all facts. Every single one of you that looks at this article will have to, I hope you make some comments down below on what you think about this article from Zero Hedge that talks about how we basically lost. There is no constitution in United States. And it goes with all these examples. And like I said, I don't want to go too much into details because that would take up the whole video. So I will just post it down below. But what are we going to do about it, right? We're always focusing on solutions on this channel, not just pointing out problems. And I will ask Brian, this might be probably the most difficult question or maybe the most easiest questions for him to answer. Like, what can people do in this situation? Like, well, look where we're at.
Well, first thing is, if you cannot control yourself, how can you ever expect to control someone else or anything else? You have to master yourself. That's the first key. You have to master your mind. You have to master the things that you desire in life and be prepared to go without those things, right? You don't always want to get up and do certain things, but you know you should because they're better for you. For example, waking up and doing physical fitness. The other day, me and you went to God's grocery store and you shot your first deer. And we had to track that deer through a blood trail. And we went over some pretty rough terrain, went through some thicker brushes, briar patches, crossed some fences, jumped a stream, went up a mountain or two, circled around for a couple miles. If you're wheezing when you're walking down a flight of stairs, who are you lying to? You're not going to do anything.
So basically, I see where you're getting with this. You know there's going to be major problems happening in United States when it comes to civil unrest. And this is just, stop what we did when it comes to deer. It might have to happen with something else.
It takes minimum effort to be somewhat physically fit in order to deal with some adversity. The potential adversities that we could maybe experience if things can continue in the trend that they're going would be far more than that. And you have a lot of people out there that think, well, I'm going to be perfectly fine because I got my guns, or I've got X, Y, and Z. I've got this and I've got that. Well, if you're wheezing when you're walking down a flight of stairs, who you kidding, bro? You're not going to do anything. You know, it's like the 400-pound cop that's going to go and chase the crackhead. It ain't happening. You're not doing anything. All you are going to be is harm. All you're going to do is harm to those around you because you're going to put yourself and your family in a situation that you think you're prepared for that you're not.
Yeah, that was straight to the point, like I said. So you really do believe like we are in for some really rough times.
The potential is absolutely there.
Yeah.
There's another great individual that you can read called Michael Yon. He was also on Jordan Peterson recently, and he talks about Pan-Fa War.
Military guy?
He's ex-Special Forces for a long time. He was actually the youngest graduate of Special Forces Academy in Army history. And he did his entire career with the Green Berets, and now he's a combat correspondent that just travels the world.
So that's serious business. Green Beret guy, right?
Yeah,
you did mention this guy to me. I never.
I've sent you a couple of his articles.
Yeah, I never. I kind of feel bad now because I never looked into it, but I will.
Just how you have the fourth turning, right? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. You have the cycle, right? Michael Yon says that it's Pan-Fa War. You always have a cyclic way in the world about pandemics, famine, and then war. And if you look, we had a pandemic. It may be a scandemic, but it was a worldwide pandemic. And we are starting to see famine. In the United States, we're experiencing food closets that are running out of food. Across the globe, the Netherlands, the number 2 producer of agricultural goods in the world. If you're sitting down eating lettuce or kale in Malaysia, the odds that came from the Netherlands is very high.
Yep.
Now they're experiencing shortages too, and their farmers are actually blockading streets just so that they can farm and feed their own populations.
It
And they're not being
hasn't, it
allowed
hasn't
to.
been covered on mainstream media at all. But I
Now-
posted a
and
lot
we're
of
seeing
videos
worse.
on this on Twitter. I talked about it because those that follow me, I called it the reset that we hear is communism.
It's
And
part
co-
of it's
and-
part of a reset. But what
Yeah.
is a reset, right? It is just a way to go back or reposition yourself better and poised to combat future
Because you can
problems.
control only what you can control.
Right.
What they're going to do, we can't control what someone in his office is going to do. Even though I know you might disagree on this in a way, like you should go out there and make your voices heard and do all this because you're more involved with that. Maybe one day I will be. That's another part of getting comfortable with uncomfortable, right?
Well,
But
you know, if
no
you
matter
take care of the dollar, if you take care of the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone wants to look at the White House or at Congress and be like, "Oh my God, can you believe they did X, Y, and Z?" If 10 years ago you would have been just as focused on your local elections as you are on the White House, which really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, that would have never been popular to have taken place in the first place. You would have taken away the opportunity. We've allowed them to fool us in focusing solely on what's happening in D.C. instead of paying attention to what's happening in our own backyard. And they're stealing your kids right out from underneath you. They're poisoning you with food. You're walking around addicted to medications that they've given to you, all while they're getting to do everything that they want to do.
Yep. So get involved with your local office.
Go to
that
City
way
Hall.
we could
Go to
control
school
a
board
lot
meetings.
more. I see what you're saying. I get it.
Just go and listen to what's happening in your local area. I mean, if you're at work and you're responsible for a certain part of the wherever it is that you work out, if there's meetings that's going to be held that are going to impact the resources it takes for you to be good or perform your duties, you're going to go to those meetings. If there's going to be a supervisory committee that's going to do a working group on how they are going to change what it is that you work on in a company, you want to be a part of that working group, right? Well, your school board is a working group for your child growing up to mature them into adulthood. If you are crazy enough to put your kids in the public schools these days, your local city council and their meetings and your quorum court at the counties, those are your working groups that are going to decide the direction of your city and your county.
Okay.
It's going to affect your day-to-day life every day.
So you go out there, right? You show up and you
Just
ask
about every
questions.
one of them. Myself or Jared goes to almost every
And
single
Jared
one.
is on the home front radio with you,
Yes.
right? As your co-host.
Yes.
Okay.
We're being an active participant in the checks and balances systems in which our government was founded on.
So this would be probably, not probably, this is the most important, I think, advice that I think anyone can hear. So yeah, we really can't control in so many ways what's going on in DC.
You're never going to control
But
that.
you can control what's going on, like you said, in your backyard,
Yes.
in your front yard, and on the side of your house.
They've taken
like, get
every
around there
opportunity.
and get it done.
They've taken every opportunity away from us to have any impact on DC. You know, the Senate was originally our check on DC. I don't know if you know this, but when the construct of our government was created, the Senate was selected by the state legislatures and the people. They were appointed, right? While they were appointed, imagine if they're doing something that you don't want to do. Say they want to go and take away guns. And all of a sudden in Little Rock, where a lot of people can easily travel to, there's 300, 400, 500,000 people that show up at the Capitol and they're being like, if Senator Cotton votes yes on that, bring him home tonight. He's done right now. It's done. He's no longer going to work. Recall him. The state legislature could do that. Now that option is taken away from him. A senator gets elected, it's on a 6-year term to be voted in. He was appointed for a 6-year term, but he could be recalled by the legislature. That doesn't exist anymore. The threat of that happening, that also allowed the Senate to look at the long game. No one in D.C. is looking at the long game anymore. They're always looking 2 to 4 years down the road to their next election. That 1 year, 2 year, they do all kinds of craziness in the hopes that you're going to forget it. They run, get reelected again, and the cycle just repeats itself.
Yeah, rinse, repeat. Yeah, why change when it works for them, right?
It's working outstanding
So it's
for
really
them.
up to, again, it comes down to we the people. I really love how you broke that down. But you also mentioned the example of the deer and the hunting. And I want to go into that a little bit more because I talked about on this channel that I believe that we're going to be in such social unrest environment, societal breakdown, basically. And this is not just because of two-party division system, divide and conquer strategy that's been working for centuries for those in charge. Because why would they do something like that, right? Well, it's a lot easier to control the nation when it's divided than when everybody's united, right? So that's why obviously we all know all this division and talking about this person is, you voted for this guy, voted for this person or whatever, and now we're not going to like each other, right?
It's two wings of the same bird. Anyway.
So easy for unfortunately for these bureaucrats to get away with this because you got brainwashed sheeple everywhere you go. So the only way this can stop too, I believe, is people unite. But that's a lot harder to do than for you, for me. He already is to get involved in your local office and ask questions. Make your voices heard. Bring your wife, bring your friend, bring your cousin with you, whoever, right? I don't know. Make your voices heard. It's a good rule,
Marco, to master the basics in life, right? Not everyone's going to go to the big show. Not every actor is going to go to Hollywood. Not every baseball player is going to go to the MLB. Not every football player is going to go to the NFL. But if you master the basics, you can be good in anything that you want to do, right? And the basics in life, how to feed yourself, how to harvest an animal from God's grocery store, how to grow something in your garden, how to can.
And how to protect it.
And how to protect it.
Because, again, it goes back to that. You live in areas where there is a lot of crime, or you are close to easy access on highways and stuff like that. Because I say from experience, I've seen with hyperinflation, civil war we had going on, most crimes were done in cities. Yes, it happened in the middle of nowhere as well. But for the most part, it was how to get in and out, to have easy access, to go in, take what's yours, and then have, let's say, two major roads.
Yeah.
That you can escape, because not too many people are just going to willingly go through woods at night with a couple of guys knowing that
it's the next major terrain feature.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder. Like you got to be a different level criminal to do something like that at night and just go through, like, let's say 40 acres to get away from someone's house.
It's layers of protection, right? If I'm walking down a city street and I'm a bad guy and I'm wanting to break into a home, and I walk by one house and I look at it and it's very well lit, I might be having second thoughts. But then I look a little bit closer and they have a guard dog. I don't like that. And then I pay attention a little bit more. I'm from a distance and I see a security sign out in front of the home. That's really putting me off. But then I notice that there's a fence and a gate around the entire property. The squeeze is not worth the juice on that target. I'm going to go 2 to 3 houses down to the dude that didn't have enough time to put down the Cheetos and stand up and go and replace the light bulb on his front porch so that he could see threats out in the front lawn.
Yeah, sitting ducks.
And doesn't care enough about the things that he's worked for and the things that he's purchased to try to put any kind of effort into protecting them and bettering them and locking them up if you live in those types of environments.
Yep. And I like how you put me again through the test on the whole thing with hunting, right?
Yeah.
I had, just like when it comes to cows, raising cattle and all that, I had no experience, but I developed passion for it, right? Like I really loved it. Plus, for me, it's very easy to take care of people the way I want to be taken care of, like running a business. It's always been my thing. Like I like numbers. I like to take care of people. So to turn that into a business was not that big of a deal. But it was really hard for me to figure out the whole, deal with the trailer, truck issues, how to fix them. I'm just not a handyman. So that was just very uncomfortable. But also when it comes to, hunting, again, very new to me, totally new. Don't know. Yeah, I process my own chickens, but this is different, right? Mm-hmm. This is like you're going out there in the woods. You got the scope. You got the target. Then I didn't even know about tracing. So I start going with this guy, and he's just going. And I'm looking at him. Now we're in an hour, right, tracking this deer. And he just keeps going. So now there is, like he mentioned a little bit earlier, all these obstacles we had to go through, and I'm like, okay, maybe he'll stop now, right? So I'm getting comfortable with very uncomfortable. I've never done it before. Now I'm like, okay, so now I'm getting thirsty, right? It's been a while. We've been out there for a while in the first place. He's not budging. There is no stopping this man, okay? And I was just like, okay, well, that's the leader, and I'm not going to be the one that says, stop already. But it got to the point like, all right, now we're going into my neighbor's territory. We're going through all these other fences because we basically ran out of property to go. And I'm like, oh, now we can get shot. And he's kind of like, all right, it is time. But that was like almost 2 hours in, hour and a half, I forget. And then we got back. And then I was thinking, what if we did finally got to the deer and then take him all the way back? How many pounds? I'm just guessing. Could be 300, 200,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't get a chance to see it when you shot. So
Yeah,
I don't have the
I
metrics
wasn't
on that
sure
one.
exactly like what their weight is, but I was like, I don't know how I would have done it, but guess what? I would have done it.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. If you got that mindset and if you're willing to get comfortable with uncomfortable to finish the video off as what we've been talking about with Brian here, is the way I see it. So yeah, I'm looking at this reset as communism. Communism's best friend is man-made famine. This is history repeating. It is not me coming up with some nonsense. Look into history in order to know the future. Okay, and once people get hungry, it takes 3 days for people to turn into animals. And this is coming, and it's coming just not because of overall division, like I mentioned earlier. I wanted to finish on that. It's coming because of food prices and supply chain issues. This is unfortunately, perfect storm, and we are in the middle of it. We are in the middle of it. So not only they got to get involved in your local office, which was a great advice, you better know how to hunt, how to be as self-sufficient as possible.
Build a community to help you out.
And have a community and have all your security in check. And we don't want to go into too many details on that. Maybe one day.
Well, a tool is only as good as it's being used.
Yeah.
As the knowledge to use it, right? So you can have the sexiest rifle with the sexiest scope, but if you've never practiced with it or utilized it, and then the first time you need to in an emergency and you realize that the scope isn't set properly, it's not adjusted to a good distance to your face for your vision. It's not sighted in, you have never test fired it, so you don't know where the crosshairs, where that bullet's going to land. What good did it do you?
What better a person to talk about this, honestly, again, then? I mean, I run out of words to say how humbled I am with being your friend and having you to invite me into your fancy setup here, like I mention every time, because you guys know how my videos look. It's kind of a joke, but I believe I got good content. Got some
Content
of a good
matters. Content's king.
got a good feed off here with someone who's been in the military like him on the front line, and someone who has been basically a civilian going through civil war and seeing what happens when inflation gets out of hand and all that.
And you don't want to do it again.
And it's kind of a good combo, I think, and I would love to hear your feedback, and I hope that controversial title from the last video is going to be better with the one that we're going to come up with here. So
We'll
see
see.
what happens.
We'll see what
All right, we're out. Thank you, guys. Thanks, man, again.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Thanks,
All
Marco.
right, we're done.